If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel.
If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and this is our live call and talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Now, you're here today to talk all about the Age of Legends. But before we do that, I want to remind you of a couple of things we have coming up here at the Dusty Wheel. Actually, today, in just a few hours, myself, my wife, Taylor, and our good friend Brian from BARSIDE Chats will be guests over on Watchtionary at the Way of the Leaf channel. Make sure to check us out over there. This will be a lot of fun. We're going to play some Wheel of Time games with them tonight. This will be a blast. Now, I want to remind you, this Wednesday, we don't have a cool thumbnail for this one, but Taylor, that's right, just me and Taylor, talking with the Innkeeper and the Innkeeper's son, the editor born. We're talking to you about our plans coming up for JordanCon this Wednesday, also our plans for Comic-Con, and maybe some new plans for the channel that we have, and discussing what the second anniversary here at the Dusty Wheel that's coming up in August should look like. We hope you'll join us on Wednesday to cover all of that. And then we'll be at JordanCon. This is one panel that we are definitely going to try to get there for you live. The Looney Theories panel, it'll be on Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern with Sarah Nakamura and Christy Lucier. We hope that the live streaming will work. And if so, just stay in contact with us during the week at JordanCon. And then we'll be back the following Wednesday talking about tel'aran'rhiod with one of our good friends here on Discord. As many know her, Zool, will be as a guest talking all about tel'aran'rhiod, the unseen world. That's going to be a blast. And finally, last but not least, hopefully you've heard, Rafe Judkins will be at Comic-Con. And we'll be covering that live here at the Dusty Wheel. July 23rd, we're going to start 10 minutes early before the panel begins. Then we'll be talking through that panel until Rafe's chance he has to speak. There are standalone interviews, so we assume 5 to 10 minutes he'll be talking all about the Wheel of Time and hopefully dropping some news and maybe a trailer. Do you think there should be a trailer? We'll talk to our guest here shortly about that. So be here at the Dusty Wheel, July 23rd, right around 1 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, I think that's 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So we'll be talking a lot about that coming up. Okay, that's it. Those were a lot of announcements. Thank you for bearing through those. But you know you're here to talk about the Age of Legends with my wonderful guests for the afternoon. So let me welcome Amber and Traci of the Road to Tar Valon Podcast. Yes, Amber with the double wave. I like it. Cheers to you both. Thank you for being here.
Cheers. Thank you for having us. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love getting a chance to meet new Wheel of Time fans, first of all. And I appreciate you both picking this topic. I know I gave you a couple like, hey, we can talk about these 5 different things. Age of Legends is one of my favorite topics because it kind of goes into that whole sci-fi side of things. But before we jump in, before we get started into that, I want to know what your opinions are here. Maybe I'll start with you, Traci. Do you think Rafe's going to drop anything big at Comic-Con? What are you hoping for, I guess?
Oh, I'm definitely hoping for a trailer. You know, like, I think everybody is. I think we've kind of bided our time, if you will, patiently. And so I think, you know, hey, why not? I would appreciate
this
that.
Is the moment. This is the moment.
Exactly.
For the trailer, right?
What other moment do you want?
You're
fingers
ready.
crossed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Amber,
totally.
Are you in the same place? Do you obviously we all want a trailer. Do you think we'll get a trailer from this?
I'm in the same boat. I've reserved saying anything about it previously because I feel like I don't want to jinx myself. But I'm feeling confident, hopeful.
Yeah, I think I've told people this. I'm at that kind of maybe a teaser trailer, like more than we've gotten. You know, maybe like 30 to 60 seconds.
But still,
And maybe a release date. That's what I guess I'm hoping for, kind of a teaser trailer release date. That's where my hopes are.
That's the winning combo right there.
Is that the winning combo? I'm trying to play the conservative, like, you know, not a full trailer, but maybe a little something more than we've received recently. And a release date would be amazing. So, I hope that's going to be fun either way. Obviously, he's going to be telling us something, dropping something new to do this at Comic-Con. So, yeah, that's going to be a blast. But, okay, that's out of the way. Let's jump into our topic for today. Let me just remind everybody, I know I have the spoilers banner up here. Everyone that's in chat right now, I want you to take this seriously. The whole idea is we're going to do a deep dive into the Age of Legends, the second age, with a little bit of talking about the end, how the first age ended. But we're not going to talk about the third age. We want book readers to be able to come in, watch this if they want a really interesting look, deeper than just kind of something on the surface about the Age of Legends, what went on, without ruining things from the book. So in chat, I'd like you to follow those same restrictions. Please don't mention characters and plot events and things they said from the third age in chat. You can mention characters that are in the second age and speak about things they did in the second age in chat. So there's your warning. Please don't, ruin this for people that come later and watch this, or that are here and saying, I don't want the book spoiled for me. We're going to try our best too. We're going to stick to the second age, right? We'll try. As Traci's like, yes, we're trying.
Yeah, always try.
That is, I think, the good start. So here, let's tackle how it began. And to do so, I mean, we can't just say, okay, the second age. I think it's important for us to just tackle maybe 2 quotes. And these are the ones I found. One of these is from Robert Jordan's notes here. And let me read that one. Where is it at here? So Robert Jordan said, and these are from, again, his notes. This isn't exactly canon about how the first age ended. But he wrote in some of his notes, the first age ended when fire rained from the heavens. The flesh of men melted, and those who did not melt were charred like coals. Plagues, boils, sores roamed the world, and famine, yet to eat or drink often meant death. For waters and fruits that were once wholesome now slew at the eating. Even the air or the dust could slay, the wind could bring death, rivers filled with dead fish, and birds fell from the sky, invisible vapors from the land that slew, noxious fumes that corroded men's flesh. Man stretched forth his hands to the heavens and seized the stars and called them his own. For his presumption, man was purged of his greatness, purged of knowledge and abilities, and reduced to an animal to begin again the climb to the light. So that is how Jordan at some point envisioned the end of the first age. But he does go on to say later on, I think, in answers to questions, that the first age ended in fire, basically. That was the idea. Now, to go along with this, before I ask you both the question, there was another quote where he talked about the first age and the ability to channel, the one power. And he said the first people to discover the ability to channel learned through trial and error with fairly high casualty rates until they learned enough not to kill themselves accidentally. Their appearance marked the beginning of the previous age to that of the books, or at least the end of the age before that one. Yes, as I have set things up, there are ages when no one has any idea of how to channel, or even that one power exists, or our own for one, the Wheel of Time turns. And And yes, people are asking, can we speak about the Forsaken? We can speak about the Forsaken in the Second Age when they show up and things that they do in the Second Age. So if you're curious, you can speak about the Forsaken in the Second Age. And so I think that setting those two stages, ended in fire and channeling, showed up at the end of the First Age. To that, Amber, like, what does this sound like to you? You know, when you imagine the end of the First Age and beginning of the Second, what do you see?
Well, first off, that quote is terrifying and biblical.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And to think about everyone coming to find that they have this ability to channel. You're looking at all of these people who are essentially wilders. And this is, I mean, a lot of bad things could have happened. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of, and so I kind of wondered, Traci, do you think that we know the channeling showed up at the end of the First Age? Do you think there was a connection between these powers that showed up in channeling and the end of the First Age? Do you think they were involved and somehow connected, or do you think they were disconnected?
I feel like there's a strong possibility of them being connected.
Yeah, I wonder, right?
Yeah. Because, like, you would have this new power, and anytime that there's a shift in power, there's always going to be conflict. And so you would assume at some point someone's going to get together a group of people and be like, these people who can channel, and who knows what the end result of that is between the weapons that may have amassed and however many centuries in the future this is, because I don't really know if the First Age ever would have been able to attain a utopian setting. And so maybe they just like went to town and kind of I don't know, destroyed each other. I say it like laughingly.
Pew, pew.
Yeah. Ha ha ha, mass destruction. Just kidding. No. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and this is brought up a lot. You know, maybe there was nuclear winter, but maybe there was also some channeling. Like you said, maybe there was some type of battle here. Although some people like to think, and Jordan doesn't say this, but like to believe that perhaps there's some mutation related. Brad just brought this up in chat. Some mutation related to nuclear winter that somehow affects and enables this genetic side of channeling to come about. Because for those that are watching, there is a genetic side to this and a soul side to channeling. So you have to have the genetic capability to learn, which we find out in the Second Age. Jordan said in the Second Age, that was about 3% of the population. I mean, we don't. In my mind, that kind of ramps up. You know what I mean? It wasn't like right at the beginning. Some people kind of learned, and maybe that genetic capability was then passed on and passed on and passed on, and then you get to be about 3% of the population. But maybe there could be. Amber, do you like this idea that there's a connection maybe on the radiation side of things, or just that there was just some genetic mutation that happened randomly and people could start channeling?
That's a really tough question. I mean, it kind of seems like as time would progress, there would be more and more channelers if it is genetics, right? So you would start out with just maybe a small group, and who knows, maybe they would have isolated themselves together. I mean, just how people can be. Maybe their numbers slowly grew. Maybe there was some type of situation where it was an us versus them type of scenario.
Yeah. I'm seeing cloning and X-Men show up in chat here. That's what. Again, we chatted about this just briefly before the show. Well, you never hear about supervillains talked about at the end of the First Age, right? As we talk about the Second Age, we'll talk about the Forsaken eventually. But yeah, the end of the First Age, when learning to channel, you know, and Jordan says like people killed themselves learning. Well, I wonder if they killed themselves doing not always great things with the power.
Yeah,
right?
maybe they were the villains.
Right.
Yeah, there were some
could have
villains,
started things off.
Yeah.
I looked into some old things I had written. Apparently, I had a thought that that one of the characters in the Second Age was like, oh, what if this person was in the First Age and somehow managed to live all the way through, and anyways, I was like, oh, maybe this particular character somehow made it from it. And I think I was targeting Ishamael here, that we meet in the Second Age. I was like, maybe he was one of these people that brought about the apocalypse in the end of the First Age. But anyways, yeah, I that's one always gets me. People kind of move on from this, like, hey, the First Age ends in apocalypse. We get the Second Age, and there's channeling, and there's like everything's great in the Second Age. So, I mean, I guess do either of you want to make any other comments about this transition or have any thoughts before we actually kind of embed in the Second Age?
I think that if there was a transition from things going really bad to things being, doing air quotes, great, it wouldn't have been instantaneous. There would have been a big uphill, battle getting things into where we're going with the Second Age. Definitely.
Yeah. Depending on how many people were left after such destruction. And Mike V just pointed this out in chat. The quote describing the end of the First Age from the notes and Jordan's answers about when channeling discovered feels a little bit disconnected. Yeah, the channeling discovered quote is actually, real, as in part canon. The other quote came from his notes that was it's not canon. So that was just initial ideas that he had. So it sounds much more biblical, I think, in many ways than he probably would have written for the books. But yeah, they're not directly tied together. It just gives us a hint at maybe what Jordan was thinking. So yeah, Traci, any other thoughts to add to just this transition period before we kind of really start talking about the Second Age?
I don't necessarily have comments about the transition between the First and Second Age. I think the thing that stands out to me for the First Age is that it's where we're supposed to be residing. Like, it's our history, if I understand it correctly. And I think it's fun that he not only gave us our present, but what is potentially going to be our future and the things that are left behind from the First Age to the Second Age. And
this is a good point to bring up, which is, and I think I want to make one tiny nuance change to what you said. Technically, the First Age is based on our world, the pattern of the First Age. So in the sense of Jordan's, like, this whole concept of there being 7 ages, and if people are watching this is like basic fundamentals about the Wheel of Time. There are 7 ages, and so the First Age was based upon our age. As Jordan says, each turning, stuff changes, stuff isn't exactly the same. So as people like, which age, what changed from our pattern of who we are today to what this one was, we don't really know. But yes, I think that's a good way for people that are watching this for the first time. The First Age was based on our world, that's a really important kind of addition to our conversation of moving on. A lot of people were saying we're almost there. So, no, we still got plenty of time. Like in my thinking, that pattern is at least a couple.
Hold on one
years.
second. Let me look through my notes. I can extend this, right? Is that what we're working on? People want to talk about what now? I'm sorry. Exactly. Why are we here?
Right,
no,
right.
I'm good. Got a ton of notes for the Second Age. So whenever
we're jumping there right now. Traci's like, okay, we're finally there. So
done.
Second Age. Traci, do you want to give everyone what is the first thing that stands out to you generally about the Second Age when you hear Age of Legends? What's the first thing that comes to mind? You've been studying now on this for days. What's coming to your mind?
That's the problem. There's so much. I think one of the things that I actually really like about this particular period is the fact that even though channeling is available, it doesn't have the same impact that we might expect something like magical powers to have. Like, it was used to augment things that people were working on, and there was this respect for technology and research and philosophy and things like that, which I appreciate. But I like that they kind of just used all the resources that were available to them to create things that were supposed to be better for all of mankind. I think that's what stands out to me the most.
Yeah, it is interesting. Why do you think that happened? Like, why does channeling, at least in Jordan's mind, bring about this sudden change to civilization? Like,
I don't know
if
if
process, right?
I don't know if it has anything to do with channeling necessarily. And maybe it's more like a mindset that went through a certain level of alteration. Like the currency in this world seems to be good deeds. Like everything you do that is for the benefit of others, you gain prestige, which then it levels you up, like, for lack of a better phrasing.
Yeah, in the Age of Legends, it was a capitalist society, but the financial gain, like you said, was based on serving people.
Yeah,
which is a really remarkable way of thinking about gain in the way of service. I like that Jordan tackled this. It does get us down that road. For those that are watching, we're going to ask you this question at the very end of the show: utopia or dystopia? Was the Age of Legends one or the other for you? And hopefully some of our conversation here will illuminate that for you, or at least bring it to your minds of where, or lean you towards believing one or the other ways. But yeah, that service is it's a reward system. And like you said, prestige comes from serving, and it's quite a remarkable way to consider, a society. Amber, do you like this Age of Legends? Do you think it's a believable?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Age of Legends. It hits all of these sci-fi beats in literature that I adore. So, I mean, it's obviously a really cool thing that Robert Jordan decided, hey, I'm going to create history within this, landscape, this giant, massive set of novels that I'm writing. And I'm going to give you all of this backstory, but kind of trickle it in slowly. And as I'm sure time went on, he had to keep answering more questions as the story went on, and we get a little bit more and a little bit more, and it's kind of just sprinkled in there. But I think what Traci was saying is really interesting, because when we do have this society where I don't want to say there's no status, because that's technically not true. Your status would be your good works and your good deeds. So there's still a social ladder to climb.
Definitely.
So, I mean, you can be altruistic, but still have something to gain for it. So it's kind of one of these questions where it's like, okay, things were good, but how good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How good were they?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's
and I don't mean to be a total pessimist, but
well, let me take one break for this. Martin, thank you very much for that tip. Martin left a tip for us here and asked, and this is going to jump us forward a little bit, so we'll just briefly tackle this question and jump back to where it said, do you think there were any Forsaken Strength level channelers on the side of the light during the Age of Legends, apart from Luz, Thera, and Telamon, maybe among the 100 companions? My initial response is definitely.
Same.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we're all, definitely we're just obviously ones that Jordan didn't care to remark upon.
Steve.
Let's be honest. Steve,
Losing these guys.
Forsaken were much more interesting to talk about, I'm sure. He said this, Jordan did say this. He said, so many people asked him if he'd write books about the Age of Legends, and he said no, because it's basically too boring. And I was like, wow. The Age of Legends was boring. I know. All of us, I'm like, what? No, it can't be boring. There's so many. To him, he thought it'd be a boring book. I can't imagine. Or boring to write about the Age of Legends. So, he said that so many times, he probably got sick of saying it. So here's a specific question for those I'm sure that are watching. And it's a question that doesn't have an exact canon answer. So unfortunately, we can't give you that. But let's talk about it. Let's take a few minutes. How much, or when it comes to the length of the Second Age, the duration here, we without spoiling anything, we know that there are 7 ages, and they're often of indeterminate length. In other words, Jordan didn't lay out how long in years the duration was. Do you, either of you, and maybe I'll go to you first, Amber, do you have any reason to believe that there was a certain number of hundreds or thousands of years when it came to the Age of Legends?
Without looking at the actual timeline?
Yes, without looking at... Well, this one doesn't have any... This one specific one doesn't have a specific timing, so you can speculate to your heart's desire on what you think it was.
Well, in our time, technology grows exponentially. So if you're looking at the time from we built airplanes to the time we're in space, it was not much time whatsoever. So anything over a couple hundred years, there would have been a massive growth of technology beyond what would be anywhere capable of what we, in our time would be able to come up with. But it would have had to have been a while, but I don't think too long. Otherwise, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Cutting myself off.
Well, we know that it became this idyllic time of peace. Like they always call out the peace side of this. We know that to the point where war was just something people didn't even understand, except for scholars. Now, what does that mean from a timing standpoint? Do we know how many generations would have to pass before we really forgot that there was even a concept of war? I don't know, Tracy, does anything come to mind to you? Like how
I feel as though the Age of Legends definitely spanned thousands of years.
Okay.
Because you have the ending, pardon me, you have the ending of the first age, right? And everything, if it ends all badness, melting flesh, no more technology, the air sounds like it's poisoned, the soil is no good. Like you are starting from absolute ground zero. So it's going to take time to reboot the human society like as we know it. And like I think about like Greek philosophers 2,000 years ago who were talking about ideal societies and blah, blah, blah. Like that was 2,000 years ago. We're still having that same conversation now. And we have definitely not reached a level of being altruistic by any stretch of the imagination. So I think we still have a lengthy conversation ahead of us before we can get to a point where we're like, oh my gosh, if I do something good and it benefits you too, that's awesome. We should all be doing that. We're not at that point yet. We have time. We need to keep talking about that. That's how I feel about it. So I think the Age of Legends was long, thousands of years.
I'm going to go with somewhere around 60,000.
Ooh, I like it.
You're in the tens of thousands.
Yeah,
Okay,
because if we look at our own history, the first musical instrument was found somewhere here, kind of close to where I live now, and it's 40,000 years old, a flute. So if back in this time, when they're still the very first musical instrument, this is when we're saying this is when we became humans. This is when we became a society. That was 40,000 years ago. So I'm just trying to think, okay, how much longer do I think that we have to go until we're maybe
right?
So maybe in 20,000 years, I don't know.
The Egyptian Empire lasted for over 4,000 years. 4,000 years. Yeah. That's a long time for like one empire. The Roman Empire spanned. I mean, it didn't end officially until like 1547. That's like 500 years ago. So, I mean,
that's not a lot of time.
It's not a lot of time. 500 years, really, historically speaking, is like
nothing. Yeah,
tiny.
Tiny. I definitely think it's more than hundreds for sure. Let me remind, by the way, I'll take a break from that question. I'll give you my answer here. I'll bring some comments from chat. Just want to thank everyone for being here today. Hopefully, if you're watching this on Twitter or on Facebook, that you've enjoyed this sneak peek into our discussion. Come join us over on YouTube for the rest of the show. We'll be going on for another hour or more, depending on how much we just keep on wanting to talk about the Age of Legends. So come join us and be here. Be here for the discussion of the question at the end. Is this a utopia or dystopia? We'll do a poll in chat and we'll find out what everyone thinks at the end of this conversation. So thank you very much for joining us. And if you are here, please do like this video so other people will find it while we're live here and jump in. So my answer to this question, it comes in part due to this answer or this piece of knowledge we gained from the books. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything about who said this or what the context was. It's just speaking about the Age of Legends. And the quote was, "There were many good years, good decades, good centuries. We believed we were living in paradise. Perhaps that was our downfall. We wanted our lives to be perfect, so we ignored imperfections. Problems were magnified through inattention, and war might have become inevitable if the boar hadn't ever been made. So I think that's really interesting, is the opinion or this suggestion that there were good centuries. It seems clear, like you said, both Traci and Amber, that there had to be some buildup of time to get to the paradise, right? I would imagine that buildup of time maybe over hundreds to 1,000 years. I still think it's possible because we had already kind of gone to a certain point as a civilization, and channeling came. So channeling, I think, has the potential to fast forward a couple things that were difficult. But yeah, it took time to get rid of war, if you will. It took time to get everyone on the same page. It took time to get economies based on service, and to get enough channelers. It took time to get enough channelers to the point where they could help build technology that would help a society sustain itself this way. Because in order to sustain a society based on service, you still needed technology to kind of complement that. So building technology, but it sounds like this suggestion from the quote I read was that even if the boar hadn't been created, the society was on a tipping point downward. In other words, they were losing the paradise that they thought they had gained, and it likely war would have come back no matter what. So it's interesting to think that they had built up a paradise, but some good centuries as that paradise. The comment wasn't good millenniums in that paradise. So I tend to think it's kind of, I know this is generic and lame, but I tend to think it's in the couple thousand maybe versus tens of thousands. That's just where my head goes. But and that's all speculation for people watching. We're just guessing. There's no actual answer to this question.
I have a question as well, because this idea, we thought we were living in paradise. What socioeconomic background did this person have where that was the life that they lived? Because if you asked the Tsar of Russia in like the early 1900s what his life was like, I'm pretty sure he would give himself potentially paradise rating, whereas his peasants, the serfs and stuff, would be like, nah, this is shit. So where does this background come from? Who are we not hearing from in the process? That's the thing that I always want to know, is what is your background that this is your statement about the period of time that you come from?
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think getting to that point, getting to paradise was the part where, like you said, maybe the person serving the Tsar was not in as great a position.
Right.
The Big White Book says even a person in the least valued position in society gained enough money to assure a comfortable standard of living. So you're right. Paradise maybe not for everyone. And so then let's tackle that.
Whose idea of comfort?
Right.
Was someone's idea of comfort a cot and a pot to pee in? You know what I mean?
Sure,
Here's your room. Enjoy.
Well, I would suggest probably no, because as we've seen, oppression does lead to revolts and will lead to violence. And in this society, that war had been kind of gone out of the conversation. One would think that even one would think the standard was good enough that people were not revolting against the system at the very least. So so it'd have to be good enough, not just a little corner. Good enough.
And see, really, that's just it. Is if you can placate the masses,
right.
things will potentially be okay. But if you take away things like, I don't know, shelter, food, and economic security, dear government, watch out. There are definitely formulas throughout our history that point to that kind of thing happening. And when you have one extreme of something, there's going to be kickback at some point regardless. So that's kind of what I see.
Well, it sounds like I shouldn't have said he, but anyways, it sounds like this quote was coming from a person who was saying that some of the cracks of things that they thought were paradise were starting to show up, and maybe, and this is a good kind of reminder for everyone that's watching. Remember to keep chat free of spoilers from other ages beyond the Second Age. We're trying to stay specifically here just in the Second Age. Please don't make any comments about characters in the Third Age, if you will, or Fourth Age, Fifth Age, Sixth Age, or Seventh Age. Please keep it just to this age. So Amber, about this question, when it comes to getting to a society that this is the Age of Legends, what do you think, what can we say at least for the standard of living? Is that all we know that's like comfortable? Is there something else that kind of gives you some clues? Like, what else gives you a clue of what the standards were that we can kind of tell people that are watching about the second age?
Well, going back to that quote, it's difficult because there's always that question of an unreliable narrator.
Ooh, yeah.
So you have to think about that too. But as far as what we are told, everything seemed pretty okay. And then we are told, we're given some questionable things where we might not have a yes or no answer, where we can kind of go from there and speculate. So, which I'm ready to do.
Yeah, let's go there. Let's speculate crime. Let's start with crime. Like from a societal standpoint, like living standards, we're told, maybe perhaps from an unreliable narrator, that crime was almost unknown, rehabilitation was quick and certain, and it was a peaceful time. So Tracy's
I'm
like,
sorry.
no way.
I'm sorry. The moment somebody says something like rehabilitation was quick and certain, I'm not quite sure what form of rehabilitation they might be using, but it does not sound friendly.
No.
You back up. I don't want rehabilitation. I'm fine.
So do you think that, Amber, do you think that's true? Do you think that this was more of like one power control over society in a negative way? Or do you think that this was actually people that they call them, healing was it's the highest rated. When they surveyed 1,000 people from the Age of Legends, their favorite talent was healing. Restorers was what they called them. It was only, like you think about surgeons and such, I believe I read that it was the only people within the healing community were channelers by the time that this paradise began. Maybe they did figure out some way when it came to crime. Maybe there was some way to either heal such individuals or prevent them. So yeah, what do you think, Amber, about this idea of the one power as a controlling element of society?
I don't think that they were controlling everything. Try not to get into any spoilers here. But when we are thinking about things like crime, we do know that there were some, I don't want to say, like what Tracy was talking about, rehabilitation, like the binders.
Binders, yeah.
Which were basically, I think, only used on channelers, if I'm correct.
The binders were, but that doesn't mean that then there wasn't, somebody didn't figure out other ways to prevent people from committing
reoffending.
Reoffending.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And with the binders, it's kind of, okay, so it's an interesting concept, but it's also kind of scary because you're essentially taking away someone's free will.
Yeah.
Which you want to stop crime, right? But at like what cost, I guess, where it becomes a little bit morally questionable.
Yep.
And if they have something like that for channelers, what do they have for just the regular people, I guess?
Yeah. Well, Tracy, do you feel, you sense this? I heard you say, yeah. So this idea of, was this a morally questionable age? Morally questionable utopia?
So we don't know a whole heck of a lot about the Second Age. There aren't a ton of documents or whatever. So everything that is known is just kind of pieced off of a small amount of information. And so we speculate a lot around what may have happened. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, that's
I feel like I need you to kind of.
That's a reasonable place. I was going to say, because Jordan does say this in his quote. When people asked him about this, was this a utopia? And he was like, well, compared to what you're living through today, when he was asked this question, you would think of it that way. But that didn't take out the fact that evil still existed.
Right.
So things were not, and I think that's what came from that previous quote that I read, which was people perceived paradise, but there were some things that were not right because they were looking for perfection.
Right. Is it evil
they
to
certainly found some.
is it evil to remove someone's free will? I think that's kind of where I'm exactly, like, what does that mean if you can control your whole society just by being like, oh, nope, just gonna fix that? Like, then do you just have like a bunch of mummies? Is this like what is that one movie where they have to like inject themselves like every few hours? Equilibrium, is that right?
Oh yeah, I think yeah.
Christian Bale and another person. Anyway, I always kind of cringe away from the idea of removing free will. And I feel like once you introduce something like that into a population, you are just asking for a dissatisfied population at some point. You know what I mean? Like,
even if it's the smallest percentage of people that have to be rehabilitated.
Right.
Yeah, it's
well, let me throw this interesting. I think this might lead us to some understanding of how they got there. In the Big White Book, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, it's like the world of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. Mm-hmm. That's just a whole mouthful that Big White Book just helps resolve. So yes, the world of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time book. It says the culture's need for a harmonious environment wherever possible led to a lifestyle focused on beauty and comfort as much as utilitarian efficiency. So
that sounds like my household.
Yes, think about it. Yeah, just change it to your family. Your parents' need for a harmonious environment wherever possible led to a lifestyle focused on do what they said.
Yes.
Whenever they said it.
Yes.
Well, there is a little bit of that. I like that you connected it to the idea of, we want our environments to be a certain way, and we set up the rules of engagement, if you will, to create that environment, and it has effects.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
The cultures, and I like how this book calls out the cultures. Who is the culture? And we know this to be true. Yes, there were few channelers as compared to the total population, but the most prestigious service could be done by channeling. So the most prestigious, if you remember, financial reward and prestige came from serving. If your most prestigious rewards come from serving and the most prestigious are the channelers, then when it says the culture's need for a harmonious environment leads me to believe what that's saying is the most prestigious people's needs lead for a harmonious environment wherever possible led to a lifestyle focused on beauty and comfort as much as efficiencies. So I wonder for myself if it wasn't the Aes Sedai as much as they were serving people that were driving this need for this, when you look at crime, and how they handled crime and their paradise. They were building a paradise, but it wasn't maybe a paradise for everyone. So sorry. That was a lot to be said. I thought that maybe that was a kind of an interesting answer. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, they would want to make sure that there weren't any other fellow Aes Sedai screwing it up for the rest of them. So maybe they were like, okay, we're going to think up this punishment. That'll work.
Well, supervillains, right? I mean, even before you take out the boring, of the Dark One's prison, you still have supervillains, right? You have channelers that are doing things they're not supposed to do, and that's what the binders look to have been for. So things weren't as Traci, you brought this up. Paradise, it wasn't like there wasn't stories in the news about terrible things happening.
Right.
It's just they found those people and they stopped them in a way that they thought was really efficient.
Swiftly.
And enslaved them to the bindings. So anyways, yeah.
Sorry, people felt the same way about the guillotine. So, just saying.
It's that's a funny connection.
Well, no, like I one of the things that this entire thing has made me think quite a bit about is who writes the history, who takes care of like the manuscripts and the documents that would be considered important to maintain the story of a particular society. So we only have this specific group. And I just kind of am like, is this like Stalin telling the whole world that Lysenkoism actually was working? And everyone was like, yeah. So is it propaganda? Did they have a really good PR agent? You know what I mean? Like, there are too many unanswered questions for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're in extremely speculative territory here
What?
because
No.
that never happens here. This
Refuse to believe that.
This is where you come from news and rumors that appear. So that's that I think is an interesting point, which is, and the Big White Book or the World of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time was always sold as one historian's take, basically. Who paid that historian is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly.
What corporation, what group, what Aes Sedai was their patronage with?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, because there's this phrase in the books that I think is important for people that are watching. Again, if you want to learn a lot about the Age of Legends, at least from one historian's take, go buy this book or go check it out. One said, and I love the word of all here, all hope to be allowed to serve according to their gifts and to be found worthy of that service. Aww. And it feels a little bit kind of creepy to say it that way. That somehow they have an entire society. Although when you think about it, when you tie your financial reward to service, is it really service at that point? Or is it just a job?
That's kind of, I think,
a reward. Yeah.
Yeah, like what does it mean to live in a world where your status is determined by your good deeds? Like,
yeah, well, not just that. Yeah, your financial, your paycheck, right?
Right.
Your standard of living is based upon you serving others. It is service is it's self-service. It's a job.
I would guess people in our age gravitate towards money because of the social status it affords them. And in the Age of Legends, it's just status. I mean, there's the question of obtaining the 3 names. Mm-hmm. So if you were born and did some great deeds and some great research, then you could get this 3rd name and it would make you prestigious. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of just like a little like benefit. So there is status. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so this is the part that, so I'm wavering now. I was like, no, this does sound like a utopia at the beginning, because there is a certain amount of, people forgetting about the word war. And now we've talked about this before. Maybe they forgot about it because people were taking it away from them using the 1 power. But, that's a
really good point.
I can't remember what's this war thing. No, but how did the people forget about war? And was it, like you said, was there some will here, force of will on a population at large without intervention from the 1 power, where people did choose this way of living? Or was this kind of imposed upon people and they were like, fine, if I'm good and I do these things, I can live a nice life while the channelers around us create that technology that's really, awesome. Is this just like some really uber cool technology and that's it?
There was a lot of good. And I'm just thinking about how we are told what these cities look like. And it all sounds breathtaking. They're described as mixes of glass and crystal and metal structures and geometric shapes and organic shapes, and then greenery woven within, the architecture of these cities. And it sounds beautiful. And then on top of that, you have people living extremely long lives. Diseases are pretty much taken away by these restorers, these healers that are Aes Sedai. So yeah, there was a lot of good. But there's also the question of like, there are some other things that are very questionable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Was
it a caste system? I mean, someone asked us, Tracy, was it a caste system? I mean, does this inherently say like whatever your gifts are, this is your station in life, and this is as much gain as you can get because this is how you can serve society?
I think there will always be like socioeconomic layers, like however you want to label it. And this one is just rife for dissatisfaction, if you ask me. Like what I'm thinking of and kind of keep coming back to is we're pushing for this one idealized vision. And in the event that that happens, there's going to be that person in the back that's like, but wait, what? What are we all doing here? And so where are the pariahs? Like, where are the misfits? Where are the people that are like, well, yeah, I just want to sit around and play Nintendo and not do any good deeds. And that's the life I want. What do those people get to do? You know, like, is their life value diminished because they choose, instead of like running around taking care of everyone else, they choose to take care of themselves and their family? So I don't know, like, I feel as though there is definitely room here for like a giant split as far as like what is considered a utopia, a caste system, if you will. Because I mean, there are just so many things about this where you would need people who could make things on a mass scale, which means all kinds of things. So people weren't all just like floating around happy, having a good time. There were definitely things that were probably, like, and there were probably things that even the best machines still couldn't manage without the assistance of humans. So
Or constructs.
There we go. Yeah, let's talk about that, because obviously the technological
nicely done.
Yeah, that was very done.
Yeah,
Amber.
The technology is the big thing that is often discussed when we bring up the Age of Legends, you know, and some of these just obviously travel off world we'll discuss here shortly, but I think the constructs themselves, the NIM or one of them. Do you want to speak about that, Amber? Can you explain what NIMs
Yes.
are?
They are my favorite. So yes, absolutely.
Sweet.
So the Aes Sedai created these creatures. Basically, it's something kind of like bioengineering or genetically engineering, but with also use of the one power. And these creatures are sentient and sapient, but they're essentially just kind of helping grow food with their seed singing abilities. So when we're looking at such a large population, you have to keep these people fed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming this is where the NIM and why the NIM were created. And this again kind of falls back on, it kind of reminds me of Jurassic Park, where just because technology exists doesn't necessarily mean that it should be used.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, you know, like you could theorize that it would open up Pandora's box in terms of unforeseen consequences, maybe, because someone could use these same methods for maybe not so good. But yeah,
Right.
The constructs are, there's, you know, we've got the ones on the good side and then the ones on the bad side.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, the Age of Legends needed a Jeff Goldblum to explain chaos theory.
Oh my gosh, Jeff Goldblum in the I'm just trying to see him like he sees like he's
Where
just
he's
talking
like-
and he basically is just describing Agenor, the existence
Yes,
eventually
exactly.
of Agenor. It's like there's
Exactly.
going to be this person that comes along. He's not going to care, you know, and he's just going to create things just because he can, and he's going to have all this knowledge that you're just giving everybody. You know, he's just like you just see Jeff Goldblum going nuts about the idea of
He's pulling
letting-
his hair out.
oh yeah, of letting anyone like Agenor eventually exist. So yeah, I think bringing up the fact that Agenor was looking at ways to do the same thing. I want to remark upon this though. The NIM somehow had souls, and I to this day wish that someone had asked Jordan and been like, "Can you explain the process by which Aes Sedai created something that somehow the wheel then inserted a soul into the thing that the Aes Sedai created in the pattern?" Like that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like that's one of those things where Jordan just threw out there, and I'm like, so you can, the wheel just was like, I'm just trying to think in the wheel's programming. It was like somebody wrote some code that hacked it in such a way that it was like, take human soul, chuck to Nim, you know, and it's just like randomly, like every time a Nim's created, it's like the bell rings and an angel gets his wings type of thing. It's kind of like they press the code for the Nim creation and somehow it hacks the wheel to like grab a soul and just like borrow it into the Nim pool. I don't know. It's a very strange idea.
It's like they created the body and then took the mind from somewhere else, you know?
Oh yeah, and that even like nefariously pulling in the soul from other means is a little bit even kind of creepier. Yeah, it's like yeah. Oh, I didn't even go there, but now, yes. How
Can you imagine if your soul got reincarnated to do work on a farm for the rest of your life without any choice in the matter?
You
That would
capture.
suck.
So I asked this question, I think, to Brandon one time, and he didn't give me an answer, which was, could you create a tel'aran'rhiod that would capture the soul of an individual before it returned to the soul pool, if you will? So, yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. That could be some kind of man-made creation that takes the soul of a person and drops it in this new sentient creature. Oh gosh, that's even
I'm sorry
creepier
if I
now.
ruined it
No,
for
that's
you.
cool. No, that's good. I think that makes more sense than hacking the wheel. I'll be honest. Like, to me, it just never made sense. But that I'm totally.
Well, it was
on
just
board
like,
for.
here's a vessel, like here's an empty body that was waiting for a mind, and then the pattern did whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure that the Forsaken came up with all sorts of ways to take that type of technology, which, and manipulate it. Oh, geez. Okay. So one of the other ones I'm thinking of is the Chora trees. And these were, if you're wondering, if you're just like reading this, Jordan talked about Chora trees that lined basically all the major cities. And basically, if your city didn't have Chora trees, it were boring. That's basically what the Big White Book says. The historian's like, cities without Chora trees, they were lame. That's basically what it says. But Chora, that's it.
If it was a city without a Chora tree, it seemed bleak.
Bleak.
What
There
the
we go.
Big White Book says.
Lame, bleak. Right. Exactly.
Lame.
Right.
How lame.
So
They're
Chora trees.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say Chora trees, for people that are watching that don't know, they're large, living, tree-like constructs made with the one power, with trefoil-shaped leaves, created during the Age of Legends. It is said they emitted an aura of peace and well-being for any who pass below the branches, which again sounds like some kind of creepy,
This is
Like
stuff.
almost blanket mind control.
Yeah, what do you think this is, Tracy? And do you like Chora trees? Seemed really cool until you realize that they emit an aura of peace and well-being. That's, I don't know. Yeah, go for that, Tracy.
Kind of sounds like walking through Seattle.
Nice.
I don't know. Like, maybe everybody was really stressed out. This was one of those motions of helpfulness in this world that creates currency around such a thing. Like, maybe there was a chura tree complex did something. But I mean, if you have a society that's like constantly passing under these trees and having these like kind of moments every step, like where's your will to do anything beside the thing that you're told to do?
You're right.
Like, does it relax you to the point where you're just like,
Right.
okay, yeah, that's totally fine. I'll go clean your toilet.
like,
No big
yeah,
deal.
what's the
They'll serve people by cleaning their toilets. That is funny. I didn't even think about that. Like, what is even the bounds of serving people? It's like,
right?
well, I'm out serving other people, and so it would serve me if you would help me
Right.
clean my
Right.
toilets while I'm serving other people. Geez.
Because I'm busy. I'm busy serving other people.
serving
so,
other people,
Oh,
yeah.
crap.
Hey,
So
I didn't
sorry
think about
about that.
adding music to the show. That's kind of like the Chora trees, right?
Yeah.
It's like emitting, like, if we started just playing some like song that changed our mood. I'm imagining like this is kind of like the first age equivalent of when you pass by something, or the what's the stuff you put in your house, like the little spray thing.
Like aromatherapy kind
Yeah,
of
like
thing.
this is like you pass by and you're like, oh, Christmas or whatever, and you're like, I feel better. That's like the Chora tree version of that. But when you pair these two things together, which I think is so great, pair Chora trees with the idea of peace, not war.
Right,
It's like,
right.
Yeah.
and it's a very peaceful society, and everyone's they're happy, and you're like, but only the cool cities had Chora trees. Go live in a cool city, like, don't go to the bleak cities where there's bleak people.
Right?
They don't have Chora trees. Come to our happy cities. So it's a
Actually,
weird
that's where all the
connection.
cool kids are hanging out that aren't
under
like
the Chora trees.
well,
me under the chora trees.
People are talking free Wi-Fi chora tree, pumpkin spice chora, chora tree potpourri. Yes, exactly.
Oh, why am I not looking at?
I love pumpkin spice chora. Is so good. Oh my gosh.
My favorite is chora quill.
Chora quill.
Aw. Oh, that sounds.
Well, that's the
nice.
question, though. Exactly how relaxing were they? Was it just, deep, mindful yoga breaths or something a little bit more? And I'm not saying the whole nation is,
stoned all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe there was something a little bit. Yeah, maybe something was going on there.
Like Mr. James said, quote, "Don't sit under the chora tree with anyone else but me." Oh my gosh. Yeah. So the chora tree does, again, if you're asking yourself, is this utopia or dystopia? Yeah, that should make you wonder, is it okay? I mean, let's be honest. That's kind of like smelling chocolate for me, right? It's like puts me in a good mood. Is that a bad thing that I was put in I have a better mood because I smelled something and it affected some, biological response to that smell? So again, is this a bad thing that they created these, or they just realize, you know what? The chemistry for humans goes all wacky, and with a little bit of tweaking here on your way to work, you gets you back in balance. And is that, Amber, do you think that is a negative, or is that a positive, or somewhere in between?
It's for me, it depends on how relaxing they really were. If this is, and the fact that it was actually created, they used the one power to create this. They would have seen it as necessary, right? If they took the initiative to come up with this. Or, who knows? Maybe it was just like, oh, hey, cool. We accidentally found this thing. And okay, now we're putting these trees in every neighborhood because it's nice. I mean, I don't know.
So, that's interesting. Do you think that the Forsaken came up with in the Second Age, after the breaking, do you think the Forsaken were like, hey, that thing we do with the chora trees? We're going to call it like, I don't know. Yeah, like some other name for these trees, and they like planted them all around cities, and it like pissed people off and made them angry and made them want to kill people. Like they're like, look, we can tweak your chemistry in our cities. You're gonna get, you're gonna walk down the street and want to kill someone. It's an interesting. I want to come up with a name for those trees.
You always have to have balance. You have to have balance.
Somebody in the chat is gonna come up with the right name for those trees. The trees that make you not feel at peace and the aura, but the opposite of that. I want to name before the show's over.
Yeah.
Okay, so technology, this interesting kind of mix of the one power with technology and the things that they were clearly doing, these chora trees in the NIM, and just the cities that they were building. Obviously, there was so much going on in the societies, so much capability. We even know, those who are watching, we know that travel to other worlds was possible in the Age of Legends, other worlds in this universe, and not only in this universe, other dimensions. So there are parallel dimensions that were accessible in the Age of Legends. That kind of opens up, like I've always wondered, like, did people leave the Age of Legends? Like, as in the bore happens and you'd think like the attack, people start dying from the breaking. You'd think that a bunch of people have been like, I'm going to that other planet because this planet sucks now. Like I always wondered, were there like groups of people that went to other planets?
Like a mass exodus?
Yeah, they're just hanging out there,
What if that's where the first channelers came from? Oh wait, no, that wouldn't work.
Where channelers, so that is a fun idea potentially.
Like that something was put into the gene pool that way?
Well, we do know that portal stones that are available that were used for this purpose in the Age of Legends were actually from the First Age, existed in the First Age. We don't know when in the First Age. We don't know how they got there, but that is a mechanism by which traveling to other worlds and dimensions was made possible. So yeah, what about coming to this planet, right? Maybe something like that. It's possible that you had some other species, other aliens, if you will, that came to this planet in some form or fashion that affected the future.
Interspecies getting together, and maybe that's where the channeling gene showed up.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah. Jordan doesn't
Who
like
knows?
tell us that. Yeah, but maybe this is a good part to bring this in. We do know of one species that is from a parallel dimension, and that is the ogier. And so the ogier that are very capable of building, amazing cities. They have other kind of capabilities, but yes, we know that. So we know that there are other dimensions, other worlds. Because of the Age of Legends kind of tells us that. So I don't know that this question of, or is just channeling come from somewhere else, is a great one. Sorry, you got me all oh, that's a really good question. So yeah, someone came up with, by the way, the chaos trees.
Ooh.
Do you like the Calora trees? Yeah, I like these. And a really good question in chat. Portal stones require channeling, right? As far as we know, they do. They come from the first age. Is there some other power source that could be used and applied to it? I believe, as far as we know, it does require channeling. But so yes, yeah, interesting things. Anything else, Traci, that comes from the Age of Legends from a technology standpoint you found kind of remarkable that people watching this might be like, oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that was possible.
I just really like all of the transportation devices that involve flying. I really wouldn't mind a flying car. I know there's just been recently footage that came out of some little flying car that made it for a 30-minute flight or whatever. It was adorable. That's what I want. Those are the things where I'm yes. So maybe that's a small thing, but that's one of the things that I really like about it. I want a flying car.
Yes, flying cars. Was it Joe cars or was that show wings? They have is it
show wings and hoverflies.
That's
hoverflies? Okay.
I think,
nice.
Yeah.
Show wings and hoverflies. Yeah, Jordan came up with some ones. I want them. They sound really cool.
They have these really elaborate names, the Nim and Chora trees, and then show wings.
Right. Yeah. Hoverflies. Why not? That sounds great.
It's cute.
Going with that. I think in some ways it shows us where Robert Jordan may have wanted society to get to, kind of dipping back to the first age and the portal stones. The idea of a multiverse and being able to access a multiverse would definitely be something that would appeal to Jordan as he's a physics major. Is that right?
Yeah,
so
I think he was a major, but I think he studied physics. I didn't think he had a degree, but yeah.
He's got this tap on that and is maybe that's where humankind will get to where we figure out how to be I want to go to this dimension with this thing and and off you go. So, because the portal stones are there in the places that they get to as well, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, it's kind of interesting the way that, because they exist in the reflections, right? When they go to mirror worlds, which are, kind of what if worlds, right?
Yeah.
So, and they exist there also. And not only that, they have a way to get back to the quote unquote real world from them,
yeah.
Which kind of creates some logical, they exist, but they're different, but somehow they're created in the same space. It's a very strange, but yeah, you can tell he loved that aspect of that.
Yeah.
I think they called it it was created by the people who knew the numbers of chaos. I don't know. Mathematicians. I don't know. It's
I think that's what they're called.
Yeah. Is that what mathematicians? That's the name they go by. People who know the numbers of chaos.
Yeah, I think they do. They might be keeping it to themselves. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm down with whatever choice they make. Well,
I know that there's so much more to go here, and I want to throw this out there and make sure that people know this is obviously a call-in talk show, right? You knew that, right? If you're watching this show, yes, you can call in and share your opinions, and let us know what you think. Are we wrong? Is this a utopia or a dystopia? Won't take the conversation there just yet, but if you have an opinion, you want to say it, you certainly can. But you can give us a call at 1-313-825-5968. That's 1-313-TALK-WATT. And we'll try to weave you into our conversations, as we like to say, as we're having them. We might not be able to get all calls, but you can certainly give us a call and let us know what you think. Now, Amber, I want to ask you before we move on from this, any other kind of technologies or things about the culture that you found really interesting about the Age of Legends that somebody coming in that hasn't read the books might find, interesting?
Just that what Traci was talking about, all these flying devices and whatnot, aren't the majority of them used with the one power as a power source? So in the Age of Legends, we do have all this technology, but a lot of it runs on the one power. So we're not really told, like nuclear power or whatever. It's the one power being used to drive a lot of this technology.
Yeah, and they have this thing called the standing flows, which is this idea that basically I almost think about it as like something Star Trek like or whatever, like you can step into it and it powers the tel'aran'rhiod that you have. So you don't have to be able to channel the one power, but you can still use it to power the device that you have that requires it. But it does seem like Jordan threw out the idea that there is like energy weapons. In other words, I thought I read in the Big White Book, like there are other forms of energy that do power some things that could be sent kind of like almost why can't I think of the like Tesla like
Tesla coil,
like Tesla coil like that you could. So it seemed like it wasn't like the one power did power everything, but there were other forms of power too. Is that what you all recall too? I know I'm like what would that be like for everyone as far as so many devices requiring the one power? You can imagine the chaos once the breaking happens.
Right.
It's like
lights out.
Yeah.
lights out. I like that. That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, it's like what happens to me or any of us, I'm sure, when the power goes out. We're like, I guess we're just gonna wait until the power's back on to live. That's how I feel. Like no more living.
How much
until the
power do I have
on.
left on the battery of my phone?
Yeah. That's how
I
it
have
feels.
to plug it into something.
One of the ones I like is the stasis boxes that they talk about. It was an artifact of the Age of Legends, and it's an artificial vacuole, if I'm saying that right. The time does not move inside of it. It's a thing devised for storing things that are fragile or might decay in some way. I love that idea that he has, where it's just like, put this in there, and it just stays in that exact place, like paused. That's like pressing pause on something. So, yeah. I do kind of wonder how many parents, like, chucked a kid in there. Like,
for some odd reason, I was kind of wondering the same thing. Like, did anyone put their kid in there and just be like, you in this running motion, I want to hold you like that forever. Just go hang out in the stasis box.
Stay tiny. Stay tiny.
Put my puppy in there.
Yeah, exactly. How many kind of messed up things did people do with stasis boxes?
Right.
I wonder. Yeah.
If you're a historian, it sounds amazing, no more decaying books or whatever. But then we have to go back to Jeff Goldblum and ask ourselves, this can be used for bad. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine what everyone's thinking about what could be used for bad in that way. Yeah, that's the interesting side of it. Jordan does give us some of that back and forth of like, this is what happened after, like once the Boar occurred and society started decaying, if you will, then you start getting some of these uses of this technology in ways that maybe they were controlling before. I don't want to say that they didn't happen, but they were controlling easier. But then maybe just more people were doing them, and they stopped being able to kind of be able to control it, if you will. So, that's a good point. And Dana's bringing this up. I had forgotten about that. Living things cannot live in a stasis box, can they? I thought it was kind of like a permanent pause button, but now I need to go back and check that. So, good question from Dana in chat. And I'll have to go see what the canon answer is. That I was just like jokingly thinking like chucking a dog or a kid.
No children in stasis boxes. This isn't.
To be continued.
It probably happened until something bad happened, and then everyone's like, "Oh, remember the warning?" They had to return those stasis boxes, and so I want to remind everybody in chat. No third age spoilers. I know we've been trying to, hopefully we've been really good. Hopefully you've watched this and afterwards you're like, yeah, no, there weren't any spoilers, but we haven't forgotten. But please don't bring up things that happen or occur in the books in chat. Please stick to characters and plots and things. And we're trying to stick to the Age of Legends right now. So, okay. So let me jump to our first caller, and I want to transition our conversation to the breaking and kind of how that affected society too here as we go. So let me bring our first caller, Eben, to the show. Eben, welcome to the Dystopia. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Fantastic.
How's it going?
Fantastic. So
Good
what
to
are your
hear.
thoughts? And I saw you had in chat, you had a lot of theories around the first age and the age of legends. So yeah, let's hear some.
Yeah. So the talk about genetic mutation, it got me thinking, about nuclear war and how genetics can be affected by radiation. So I think maybe the first ability to channel came from that. And then I believe that, there's a trope in science fiction about, once mankind reaches a certain level of technology, that the aliens will then decide to talk to us. So to me, that is like interdimensional beings. They detected the ability to channel and channeling happening on Earth. So they came to visit and they started teaching channelers how to channel. And in the process, they also built the portal stones and taught mankind how to use them. One point that comes up in the books, not really spoiling anything, but that the wheel is balanced. So I don't believe the first age necessarily ended with an apocalypse. I think the apocalypse came earlier. And then, then the mutation happened that allowed channeling to begin. And then, interdimensional beings started kind of interfering and helping. And that's kind of where the transition happened, was with the creation of the portal stones and the ability to start really controlling channeling. It brought something good. It brought some balance to the bad things that happen. Mosk and Merc and their lances of fire that could cross the planet,
Yeah, and it's never clear where there's a break between ages, but I do think Jordan kind of makes that distinction, right? The second age is really when channeling took off, if you will. But I like the idea that you're saying we had apocalypse, then there was a time of channeling learning, if you will, until it became kind of a force for changing the world. And when that's kind of where people acknowledge, okay, the second age has begun, right? We've left the first age.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where the Finns became aware of us.
I like that idea. I like that. Well, again, we do know that, we know there are parallel dimensions and worlds in those and species of creatures that eventually we do connect with, right? We're made aware of the redstone tel'aran'rhiod doorways from the second age that do connect us to a parallel dimension. So in the end of the day, I think it's totally legit to say that there was some other, species, if you will, regardless of which one it was, that does come in and maybe helps create those who knew the numbers of chaos. Very well could be that could be the species
Absolutely.
you're talking about, I like that idea.
Absolutely.
Well, Evan, what's your favorite, before we let you go, I love the theory. What's your favorite kind of Age of Legends tech that you've, read of or heard of or whatever it is? What is your favorite one that you've kind of always come back to?
God, probably the library tel'aran'rhiod.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. An entire that kind of tech.
It's very internet-like,
Yeah. And as a Brown Aja, member of the Brown Aja, I totally agree with this idea. That would be one of my favorites too. So Evan, thank you very much for calling in. I love the theory, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.
We'll see you next weekend.
Sounds good. That'd be awesome. Yeah, look to talk over at JordanCon. See ya. Bye-bye. So what do you think about this, Traci? Do you like the people that were those who knew the numbers of chaos, that maybe it was some other species from some other world that came and built the portal stones and kind of helped the world transition to channeling?
It's totally possible. Yeah. I think it would also help to explain why they're already portal stone set up in like every place else that they've gone to, you know, like maybe there's a group of people out there that are like, hey guys, we learned this thing, you know, so and then just like took it along to everyone. Who knows?
Yeah. What do you think, Amber? Do you think it was humans that came up with these, or do you think portal stones were maybe from some other civilization?
I like the idea that maybe they were from another civilization. And I like the idea that maybe the first age was, you know, this moment where the human population had their first encounter with beings from elsewhere. That would make a lot of sense, where when we've got all of this really crazy, the stuff like portal stones where you just, I mean, it's really hard to picture someone that far back having this idea like, oh, okay, we're going to make this, you know, from one minute to the next, they're just learning how to channel. And then of course we don't know how long it takes till we get to the end of the first age, but yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about.
Yeah, I like it. That was a fun one. Okay, we have
Thanks,
two other
Evan.
callers. Yeah, Evan, that was great. We have two other callers. We'll weave them into this chat here, but I want to jump to the breaking. So obviously the breaking is a significant event in the Second Age, and it all begins with researchers. That's right, the scientists. You're to blame
Bad guys.
for the end of this paradise, this utopia that existed. If not for you, no, that's likely not accurate, but it did happen to fast forward things here because this group of researchers was looking into some way to access this other power that they found. Tracy, do you think that there was some motivation here for distinction, you know, and getting a third name and serving the populace by gaining the prestige of bringing new things and new discoveries that led to the boring into the accidental boring into the Dark One's prison here?
I kind of feel like it was an attempt to create an opportunity for a totally equal playing field. Because this is supposed to be a source of power that men and women can access equally. And for people who feel as though as a female, you're kind of being held back from what you can do just because you can only access Sadar, you know? And maybe if you could access Sadine, that you would be stronger, because it seems like the men are able to be stronger in the power than women are. And so that's what I feel. Like, I feel like there was a little bit, I don't feel like there was an altruistic moment that like necessarily inspired it. Maybe someone had that thought, but I think it was more a power grab.
Yeah. I think and Stubble was asking, is the actual breaking in the Second Age? Yeah, the breaking is part of the Second Age. The actual boring of this thing and the breaking itself. But yes, there are. The breaking does transcend. We won't go that far into the breaking. We'll probably stop at the ceiling of the prison, the ceiling of the bore, which I would say is still within the second. The breaking continues, and so but we won't go that far. But the beginning, basically, of the breaking of the world is mostly what we're talking about here. But so yes, when it comes to boring into this prison, I like that you're saying that it's not necessarily that altruistic, potentially for some, and that there is some interesting aspects of this new technology, right? This new power that could power even more. Like, where's the end? I guess that was like, when do you stop as a society, or do you just keep going?
Yeah,
like they always talk
exactly.
about,
Yeah, like it's always what's the next thing. That's kind of what we reach for as humans, is what's the next thing, what's the next piece of tech, what's the next enhancement, supplement, popular drink, you know what I mean? Like, it's always what's the next thing. So
Amber, do you think that this boring into the prison itself, we know it's part of the pattern of this particular age, like this is something that the wheel has baked in, like this event of giving access basically to the Dark One, who's outside of the pattern, to be able to access the pattern and affect it. This concept that Jordan has, like, why do you think that he has this boring into the prison and the subsequent breaking of the society as the end of this age?
I think in my opinion, it was going to happen regardless because it's there. So if you're thinking about any type of natural resource within our world, if it exists, humans will find a way to use it, basically. And especially when we're talking about these two researchers that are looking for this next power source that can be used, whether you're a male or female channeler. The one that comes to mind, Mirren, she's extremely clever, and I don't see her finding something like this and not being a part of it.
Let's poke at that.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Well,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to think if we have any canon answers about, like, certainly the motivations behind doing this, of like, what were the hopes? What do you think were Mirren's hopes in being part of this research team and what they were trying to accomplish?
I think she wanted to be wanted to be as powerful as her male counterparts.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I think it was for her.
Some distinction that she didn't appreciate. She wanted to be, that's an interesting way to think about it.
And not even so much as she wanted to be better, just like level the playing field.
She just wanted, like, I feel like it was always really frustrating for her that she was always just a smidge under like the strongest male channelers. And I think it really, like, I mean, she had hundreds of years to be angry about the fact that she couldn't get any stronger. So someone was like, so, hey, I found this thing. And she was like, that, I am on board for that. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can have access to that. Yes, please.
And she definitely I think part of it is what Thomas just put in chat. She wanted her third name, right? She wanted distinction, but I think she also, like you're saying, wanted the thing that would, like you say, level the playing ground, if you will. I know people have talked about this. The breaking, we're going to get to that. Again, we're going to stop basically at the breaking. But what broke the world, and that's what we're talking about here, is the beginning here of the boring of the Dark One's prison. So, and I guess I didn't explain that, and maybe I should, and we'll bring a caller in here next. Obviously, if you're new to the books, and you don't know anything about this, I recommend you go look at Unraveling the Pattern. Lauren has a YouTube channel. Go look it up. It has 101s on this stuff. But we're assuming you know that there's a creator and that there's a Dark One, and the Dark One exists outside the pattern. And in the Second Age, a research team bores into that prison where the Dark One's at, and now the Dark One has access to the world. I think Jordan is on record when we talk about Mirren. Jordan's on record saying, of all the people on the research team, Mirren was the only one to basically swear over to the Dark One of that entire research team. So, I mean, when you think about that, the researchers obviously were not pleased with what they had done. Afterwards, it wasn't like they were like, this is amazing.
They're like, yeah.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, this
is bad.
Martin, thank you very much for the tip. Martin just asked, said, it is dumb and unfair in a superstitious medieval way that people blamed male channelers for going mad. It was those who bored into the Dark One's prison who deserved that blame, if anyone. Yes, those researchers, again. But just think about this. The researchers that came up with the Chora trees, or the technologies can always be used to somehow create something you didn't want, an apocalypse versus a paradise. So in the same way, think about the constructs. That sounds like a great idea until you turn it around and you make a construct that can be used to just annihilate people and kill people.
Yeah.
So I think that Jordan does like to play with this idea of technology and how it, how the good and bad sides of technology, which makes a lot of sense for his background, not only in physics, but also in war itself.
Absolutely.
Let me bring our second caller to the show here. Let me welcome someone we all know, Norm. Welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing today?
Great Innkeeper, as always, I raise my mug to you, good sir. And ladies of the realm, I always tip my hat to you and raise my mug to you. And to everyone in chat, what's up on this extremely hot day?
So Norm, what's going on? What have you said, or what have you thought as far as our conversation about the Age of Legends today? Yeah, what's the thing that kind of compelled you to call us?
One thing that has never been talked about when we talk about the Age of Legends is and I put this in quotes, the hubris of man, as in man's desire for more power, or man's desire to want what they cannot have. And that is something that has stood the test of time in memoriam. I don't care if it's, sci-fi or real life or parallel universe or whatever. There's always going to be that faction of people who want more and are just not satisfied with what they have, regardless of all of the technical and magical advancements that the One Power gave this time period in the Jordanverse. That's one thing that's never been done, and I liken it to spoiler alert, everybody, for people who don't know the X-Men lore. Charles Xavier.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so Charles Xavier and Magneto, aka Dr. King and Malcolm X, those ideologies had to have also played some sort of role in this, whether it's in society, whether it's in wanting more than what they have. There's those little underpinnings that are not talked about in the Age of Legend, and I can't help but think if Age 1 is theoretically based on our society, and everyone knows about all the BS that's been going on in our society, some of that had to play some sort of role, especially with the beginning of channelers, and had to also play in a role with male and female. There's this perception, like you were saying, of men being stronger than women, yet it's been mentioned that there isn't a fire that water cannot quench. There isn't a wall that cannot be taken down by a powerful wind. So, there is natural balance in everything, and yet it's perceived that men are stronger than women. So, that whole dynamic, that underpinning is still, I think, was kind of led towards the actual end, besides the actual events that did happen. We're not going to talk about that part. But what led to those researchers wanting to find something new, because we have to level the playing field, and men and women can access this. Woohoo! Really? Do they? So there's that side of it that people haven't talked about. So
okay, yeah, no, we will continue that conversation. I want to ask my distinguished guest here about what they think about this idea of the hubris side of this question. Lancer, as always, man, appreciate you calling in, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
You guys take care.
You too. So to Nora's point about hubris, is that the point of this, Traci? Is Jordan's point here from a writing standpoint just saying, yeah, hubris in the end, no matter what utopia, paradise, whatever you want to create, that's going to be your reason for the downfall?
I think I actually wrote down as one of my notes around stuff today was, I think this is his way of saying a perfect society cannot last. And I really do think that that's what it is. And I agree with this hubris of man idea, because that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it was like, this is your idea of paradise, but just because it is your idea of paradise, does that mean it is everyone's idea of paradise? And if you have achieved it, how has that happened? How has it affected the people underneath you? And what did you do to get to that point? There was something about the perceived something that he said that I tried to grab a note out and now I can't find it, but sorry about that. I think it was, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think it came down to this perception of some of the desires, like Mirren, you know, her perception either from a societal standpoint of like, I need this to be seen as someone important, or even the perception of, I want to level this playing field. I think I should be able to be capable of more or be able to have access to more. I think that's what he was talking about, was perception of what's powerful, who gets to determine what's more powerful, less powerful, more useful, less useful. If you were, for example, Mirren was actually, I believe, the most powerful female channeler
of her time.
So like of her time. And she was dating for a while the most powerful male channeler of their time. That was like a power couple, you know, for the age
literally.
Of Legends,
Literally.
And so like her perception that there was even more power to happen, or that there was something else to gain by having more of this, I think is what he was talking about, of like, in the end, like there's some type of balance to, or should be some type of balance of like, sure, a lot of power is great, but is it more what you can do with that power? You know, I don't know. Anyways, I think that's what what he was trying to say. So
thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do the poll. Let's ask everybody that's still here. Are there people still in chat with us? I see people talking. So you can both, if you both have chat open, you can vote, but I'll ask you your opinions. Taylor's going to drop this into chat. Hopefully you'll vote for us here. The question's going to be Utopia? ? And the answers will be yes or no. Watch for instructions. It already opened. There you go. So you're going to vote yes, you believe it was a utopia, or no, you do not believe the Age of Legends was a utopia. And we're going to center this around the time where paradise, we're speaking of paradise, not the beginning of the Second Age that was building towards this idea. When it got there, when we got to when people thought of it as a paradise, was it a utopia or not? So you'll put exclamation point, vote as one word, space, and yes or no. I'm kind of curious what chat's going to come up with. And let me go to you, Amber, first.
So exciting.
We've just talked a lot. You've researched a lot more than you've probably been able to say today. What do you believe during this time that paradise existed in this, whatever, let's say it was centuries. I guess we were told there were a couple good centuries, basically some good centuries. Was it a utopia or was it a dystopia?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to have to go with Robert Jordan's words here, where he said it wasn't a utopia. Or this, I think this is what you pulled from notes, possibly, or from somewhere else.
It was just an interview answer that I think he gave.
Okay. But dystopia, it's hard to say. I mean, I'm going to have to go with probably closer on the side of dystopia, just a smidgen in that direction.
You lean towards dystopia, because that's,
yes.
I mean, we can all say it's both, but I like that you at least told us you lean towards dystopia.
Yeah.
Tracy, where are you leaning towards, if not kind of fully on one side of this?
I think that they did a really good job of approaching what could be considered a utopian society, but I think that, and this actually takes into consideration the hubris of man, I think that any extreme is going to cause a counter reaction. So if it had its moment of utopia, it definitely started leaning more towards dystopia at some point as well. Like, somebody always pays the price for moving forward. There's always a price to pay. So I feel as though there's probably dystopian roots in this society at the very least.
Maybe any drive for perfection always has some measure of dystopian kind of methodologies built into it, where it's like, how are you going to get to perfection? Well, I'm never going to do this thing, and I'm going to force everybody to do this thing.
I just tell everybody I'm real good at it, and I say it with a lot of confidence.
But I do agree from Jordan's standpoint, what we have today, this would be there are lots of aspects of it that's much better than what we have today. But like you said, if there was a peak, to me, there probably was a peak utopia moment. It was probably very short. And so building up to it, and then coming down off of it is kind of where I would imagine, because any system like this, especially with humanity, ultimately it's seeding. Humanity often seeds its own destruction into
absolutely
into things. So
we're pros at that.
yeah, we're good at that. We're good at that.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone has voted yet or not. Please do vote. If you haven't, again, you're voting on whether or not you think the Age of Legends during the time where we call it paradise was that basically, was it a utopia? And if you thought it was, ! Vote space yes or no. Do you think that it really wasn't? That it was kind of seedy and creepy and controlling, and it really was not as nice as people suggest it was for most people, but for some.
And if we've ruined it for anybody who was like firmly on the utopian side, we're real sorry.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I do want to bring up Martin. Thank you very much again for the tip. Said, and brings back this point, and we're not going to end up spending a lot of time there. We're getting to the end of the show here. I'm sure Amber and Traci have other things they have to get done today. But Martin pointed out it's not entirely fair to blame those researchers who made the boar in the Dark One's prison, also just singularly, but less fair to blame the mad male channelers. Yes. If you're watching right now, this age basically ends with the sealing of this boar that happens. And the subsequent, what they call a backlash. And if you want to read this, there is a strike at Sheol. It's something on the internet. You can just look up strike at Sheol. You can read what happens when they attempted to basically seal off the Dark One's influence on the pattern, and this backlash that happens. And this backlash leads to tainting saidin, which leads to actually breaking the entire world. The breaking that had begun with the boring into the pattern, then it really gets going in earnest. And that's that thing that kind of transcends both ages. The aftermath of that breaking pretty much begins, or you can say starts, or basically, anyways, the breaking and aftermath is that kind of mixed point between the second and third age. So I appreciate you both being here. I know there's still more to discuss. I'll try to. Do you both have time for at least one more caller?
Yeah.
To come into the show?
Yeah. Sure. Go for it.
Okay. Let's bring Mike into the show. Mike, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing? Thanks.
Great. Yeah. Great. I saw you had a question about portal stones and how they got there. What did you want to ask us, or what did you want to comment on?
Yeah, sorry. It kind of goes back to, I think, a topic you guys did way earlier in the show, but you were talking about, and I think maybe one of the callers was talking about how they got there. And I really love the science fiction part of this. It wasn't a huge focus, but it was a really cool way to color this part of the world. And what I kind of always thought was at least a possibility was that we really only we experience one age, we hear about another, and have a very few things from the first stage. And it's kind of mentioned a little bit. But the idea that there is 4 other ages in this 7-age cycle that we go through, and to me, at least in science fiction, a big theme is that a lot of times when we find something we don't understand, we tend to think it came from somewhere else, like this idea of extraterrestrial or interdimensional. But from what we saw of the portal stones and how many characters, I think you could travel through time essentially as well. And the idea that maybe portal stones came up in the first stage, or they've always been there, or were seeded there by some future version of humans, that they figured this out. And in order to come back and study past ages, like, because I think one thing that was brought up is like, how is there such like a distinct coverage of the entire world with these items? It's not like there's one here and there. They're pretty dispersed throughout. So you guys were talking about it, and just kind of the idea that future humans, or even like the Ogier, we know they come from somewhere else. Are they an offshoot of people 500,000 years down the road that evolved differently? So that was just really interesting to me. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think portal stones is a fascinating one. We actually talked, I think we did a live stream maybe almost a year ago, talking about portal stones themselves. And if it's a really interesting topic, you should go check that one out if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, we kind of break down what the prevailing theories are, and I thought we dug into the Pearl Stones, but maybe I'm misremembering that. But yeah, I'll tell you my theory, which I haven't shared yet, which is I believe that, well, it's a function of the wheel, if that makes sense. I think it was built in as part of the whole pattern of the ages, and that it was already there. Now, those who knew the numbers of chaos, I don't know. Again, there's reason to believe that it was human made also. I think, again, that whole question or that quote about those, it came from the first age. It was built by those who knew the numbers of chaos, could make it kind of human or in world built also. So, but yes, I like the idea that some future nation sending it back, so maybe they can let people kind of like research things, go to other mirror worlds and see the effects of the choices they're going to make. And so they choose not to make those choices. So that's kind of fun. But
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, I had never thought about using that way until Mike, you brought that up. So, hey, Mike, thank you very much for calling in. And I want to ask you before you go, what is the age, your favorite second age tech that you've heard of?
I don't know if it's favorite, but I'll just say most interesting is the binding rods and the binding chairs. It kind of gets to the point you just had the poll about, which is like one person's utopia, another person's dystopia, because I'm curious if we got their perspective as opposed to the people that we tend to get who benefited from the society, what their answer would have been. And so I think they're the most interesting.
Yeah. I can see why that's not necessarily favorite, but interesting. Hey, Mike, thank you very much for calling. I appreciate that. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Well, let's see the end of this poll, Taylor. Let's show us who, what, did we convince people otherwise, or was this just, I'm
curious.
Yeah, me too. Oh, so no, 72% do not believe it was the utopia. So yeah, I would imagine that most people lean dystopia once you kind of dig into it a little bit. But again, I'm kind of in that but probably better than it's a utopia. It's a dystopia that I would like to experience, maybe just to see if I like it. I don't know. It's
I'd try it. Yeah,
I'd try it.
I'd vacation there.
Yeah,
give me a couple days. See how I feel. See how I feel about those chore trees.
Yeah, I might not want to build my house there, but I would go there on vacation.
Yeah. Timeshare.
I want to bring we actually have one more caller. Mash of the Deck's been waiting for 25 minutes. Let's let Mash of the Deck make a quick comment here with us. Let's bring Mash of the Deck to the show. Mash of the Deck, how you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. You didn't have to bring me in. I know you guys are at the end.
I know you're right there, but no, I thought I'd give you a moment. I know you usually have amazingly awesome questions, but is there something you wanted to leave us with before we close out here?
I was having a discussion about the Age of Legends recently, and the Boar in particular. And the question had been posed, did they think it was a red flag, basically? Did they know that it had been an apocalyptic event? Because I think, you had Bidamon and you had Mirren. And Bidamon's the Oppenheimer here, right? He's the one who goes, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, right? Whereas Mirren's like, hold on, we can work with this. So, I was arguing for the side where it's darkness covered the sky and people were screaming and, the thingy they used to bore the hole, rained down in fire and the university was destroyed. And I was like, totally a red flag. And then other people were like, but, you know how it is in academia. People propagandize the heck out of this stuff. So what do you think? Do you think that the prevailing opinion was total red flag, we done screwed up? Or it's well, let's honor the sacrifice of the people that did this and use the thingy that we unleashed upon the world.
Amber, any thoughts there? What do you think? What
I would assume for anyone that was in the vicinity of the Kolam Dan, this university where there's this rotating thing called the Sharome on top, and this is where they're channeling, and that's the thing that blew up, I guess.
Right, that's the thing.
I would assume that if you are anywhere within this region, you would have seen the destruction that it caused. And so depending on how fast word travels in this age, I don't know, they had to have some type of equivalent of,
like a news system.
News or whatever.
Everyone saw this for sure.
Exactly. So, I feel like anyone who would say oh, this is nothing to worry about, We had this exact same problem when Chernobyl happened. There, bureaucrats saying like,
yep,
we'll be
totally
okay,
fine, guys.
it's
Totally
not-
fine.
So there's always going to be someone spinning,
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it depends.
That's how I feel about it. There's always somebody spinning, and we don't have all of the details that we might need to have a real picture of what was happening.
Yeah, I'm going to say that this likely happened.
But that's an awesome question.
Yeah.
My guess is that this happened a lot, and this was just the remarkable one because it led to boring into the Prison of the Dark One. With all the technological leaps that they were making, with the danger that they talk about with the, for example, other tel'aran'rhiod that we eventually learn about, just the inherent danger of the use of these items of power at times suggests to me that there were probably lots of people that died, and there were probably big explosions that happened all the time. It was a cost of paradise, right? It was like I think Traci said something like this, right? It was like the people that died to make this possible, their names were put on the on the column afterwards, like thanks to those who sacrificed to bring us this next level of paradise that we didn't have before. So my guess is they didn't have to really do too much PR because it happened a lot. That's my theory on it, Mash of the Deck. At least. So.
I like that. I like that take on it, Matt.
Yeah, I appreciate you ending with us and that take. And so that's it. Hey, Mash of the Deck, thank you very much for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome.
Okay,
call you soon. Bye.
Okay, you two, thank you so much for showing up here at the Dystopia. I know you stuck around a little bit later than I told you, so I appreciate that.
Totally fine.
Before I let you go here, the Road to Tar Valon, your podcast, what's coming up next, and where should people, if they want to interact with you about your podcast, where should they find you?
Well, we actually just wrapped up our read on the Eye of the World. And we're going back to something we did, like we started with New Spring, and then we did some like what we like to call Westland 101 episodes. And so we tried to like pull out things that we wanted to talk about for Eye of the World. So we're there right now with getting ready for the Great Hunt. So we have some extra ones coming up. We just did one on the Horn of Valere, and that was really fun. And we've got a couple other topics that I'm sure we'll figure out as we go.
Yeah. Well, I like that you break out and do those kind of topical ones also. I like that.
It's really fun. Like Amber, I mean, you saw our document. We like to do the research.
You do, yeah. No, I appreciate that a lot. Amber, if you had to explain your podcast in 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds, in other words, what's your elevator pitch for people that are watching right now? Or
elevator pitch
to show up and download an episode of Road to Tar Valon.
Yeah, we're just a couple of lubies that are good friends who like the Wheel of Time. We like to research things, and we do many episodes that are, for the most part, halfway spoiler-free, and then the next half full of spoilers.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go check them out. Yeah, I know. I like that you've made some differences with your podcast and others. You know what I mean? It's like I like that you split those up. I like that you do topical episodes here. So yeah, please do check out Amber and Traci. I'm sure you've enjoyed their commentary today. It was a lot of fun to have you both here. And again, I appreciate you doing the research that you did. It's really helpful to kind of make this.
Thanks for having us. We love it.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, if you're watching this right now, please do like this video on your way out. Please do subscribe if you haven't and you enjoy this kind of live Wheel of Time content. And like I said, tonight we'll be over at the Way of the Leaf YouTube channel. I'm playing Watchtionary with my wife, my son, and my good friend Brian. That should be a blast. I'll try to get that link into the description of this video. Also, if the admins are still in chat and they want to drop it there, they can. Okay, that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for being here with us on the Euro final Sunday. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure someone on Twitter will have already spoiled it.
Italy won!
Oh, wow. Spoilers. Oh, I guess show contains spoilers. We have a banner up. We're good. We're good. Okay, so, well, thank you very much for being here on this Sunday afternoon. And as we say around here at the Dusty Wheel, smash to black.
Welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel.
You went right to kill it. Look at you. You're all ready. You're just done. I mean, this is like this is
really
one
well.
of the biggest scenes.
And now I'm like, great, my turn.
And if you don't like that, you want to say, well, Robert Jordan could have made the two rivers all white. He could have, but he didn't. So,
Just complimented me on my dress, and as you can clearly see, I'm
sad. I see the Comey as something along the lines of a Shida Haran analog.
It does make sense why it outlasted the breaking.
Yeah.
See, this is why I have Therese in the show, because she's going to correct everything that.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dusty Wheel Show. What? Meme Off Challenge! Yay!
Pair of like baby face mounted on like a huge body. So like all of a sudden,
not just a traditional fantasy, right? There are sci-fi elements. And just a moment ago, Rafe tweeted something. So let me get my guest in here with me, and
probably I would say put in 70-80% of the work. I got to be over the shoulder and be like, no,